appeasement or an indulgence of fundamentally bad ideas does elicit a political and policy response that is very seldom in the best interests of the country's economy or of the business community in the country.
Is big business naive in its dealings with the government? Well, joining me to discuss this is CRA Director Frans Cronje. Frans, how is the private sector doing in terms of its engagements with government? Is it defending its interests adequately?
Yeah, David, naive is a strong word and all that, but the track record over time, I mean, this goes back more than 20 years, is that business in South Africa has often not had a very good read on the intentions of the South African government. And it's often been disappointed or caught off guard by decisions taken by that government. And that remains the case to this day. I mean, you only need to think back to the disappointment around the Ramaphoria, the long game, the inevitable reforms that business leaders sincerely believed would ensue from Mr. Ramaphosa's defeat of Jacob Zuma to see the problem at play.
So, Frans, let's look specifically at the COVID-19 response and the vaccine. Has business strategically acted in the appropriate way here, just given how government is centralizing vaccine procurement and distribution? Are big business companies being left out in the cold?
Yeah, that's a very good question, David, and there are definitely risks here. And the risks, the chief risk emerges from the idea, which is terribly nice, that business, the private sector, medical institutions and funds will help to finance the vaccine rollout in the country. And this is undoubtedly a good thing to do. And I think on the part of those CEOs who are driving it, it's a nice sentiment, and as long as the members and shareholders of these companies buy into it as well. But that's one point. Second point is it's a very dangerous thing to do, because what the government is attempting to do is to set a precedent where the public regards the private sector as having an obligation to finance healthcare in the country beyond the client base of private hospitals or beyond the membership base of medical aid schemes. And they want to establish that obligation far beyond the fact that these firms and their members already pay the taxes that are used to finance healthcare broadly in the country. And once that precedent is set, that the private sector has an obligation to pay for the vaccine, then it's very difficult to get out of a position where future health crises and even just run-of-the-mill health demands will result in pressure being applied to private sector firms to come up with the financing. And this will extend, it already does, far beyond the healthcare environment, where as the government runs out of money, as the deficit deepens, as debt levels rise, the South African government will look to lean on the private sector to plug spending gaps, whether explicitly through prescription of assets or whether in a more roundabout manner. And I think there is a naivety at work around the COVID negotiations specifically, a naivety with a long track record and many unfortunate unintended consequences in allowing the idea to take hold in the public mind that businesses should finance vaccine access for South Africans. When, and on the numbers, David, just buying the vaccine in and of itself is, in the greater scheme of things, given the size of the budget, not a very significant expenditure item for South Africa at all. It is the debate around it is being used to create the impression in the public mind that these rapacious profiteers in the private sector It's about time they start contributing to the greater good of the country. And to find yourself in that position reveals, again, a degree of naivety on the part of business leadership in the country.
Right, Frans. Well, it seems that the consensus-based approach that business often takes maybe has shortcomings, and that business should be pursuing more of a transactional approach with government. We'll give you this, but you must give us something in return. Do you think that that is a better proposal for business in its engagement with government?
I think certainly. I mean, business and government need to work together. Of that, there's no doubt. But I think the business community would do well to insist for its part on, through any negotiation, that the government demonstrates good faith in taking firm moves towards reform before demanding more of the broader business community in the country. And this is a piece of advice we've offered for a long period of time. It's never really been taken seriously. That if you wish to form a good and a sound relationship with South Africa's ruling administration, that is best served by taking a pretty hard line on the core issues. Appeasement or an indulgence of fundamentally bad ideas does elicit a political and policy response that is very seldom in the best interests of the country's economy or of the business community in the country.
Well, thanks very much, Frans. My name is David Ansara. Please do join us every weekday morning at 7 a.m. for another update from the Center for Risk Analysis. If you enjoyed this content, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, take care.